Senator, it's nice to have you on this evening. I wish it were under better circumstances. Obviously, we were going to be talking about the Trump tariff deal, and I'd like to get to that. But first, just, your reaction to what's going on. Not just, this is not isolated to New York City. We had a situation over the weekend in Cincinnati, Ohio, where a couple was leaving a concert, a jazz fest, a music festival on Saturday night, and they got beat up walking down a street that was once a safe, popular street full of bars. It's exactly where you'd go after Jazz Fest in Cincinnati. But they were beat up, and the whole thing was on video, and people were laughing while they were recording that video. And this just seems like this is what life is like in blue American cities right now.
Well, Rob, it makes you sick. I saw that video, and what makes it even worse is if this was a race thing, if it was reversed, and unfortunately that was a black couple being beat up by a mob of white individuals, excuse me, they would that would have been all over the news. That would have been all over the media news, the left news, left-leaning news. They would have covered it. Not one single media outlet covered this story except you guys, I really believe. And it was disheartening because that should never happen. There's no excuse for it. What just happened, in Manhattan right now is very disgusting. As I was looking over the reports, trying to get the reports as fast as you were going to, if the guy was actually saying free Palestine at the same time, supposedly went to the 33rd floor, and this was a Jewish-owned company that was been around for well over 100 years. You have to assume that it was, a terrorist attack. You'd also have to have all the precautions out there. For them to be looking at his vehicle, you would have to make that precaution. For you to look at his vest to find out if it was an IED, you would want to make sure that that was taking place. It's very concerning when you see this type of behavior. But honestly, it's not surprising when you have the left that is having the rhetoric that they have. They're telling people to go spill blood. They're telling them to take it to the streets. They're telling them that that the country's being ruled by a dictator, and they play on the feelings of those with some type of mental illness that believe what they're saying. This is type of behavior that takes place, and there's no place for it at all. But thank God we have law enforcement that's willing to literally put their life on the line to make sure people around them can go home safe, even though they may not make it. And that's what happened in this case. An officer put his life on the line so other people could go home safe. But I guarantee you this officer had a family that loves him as much as our family loves us. But this is his calling, not a job. This is his calling, which makes you sick when you had the left that goes out there and talks about the police and demonizes the police and wants to defund the police.
Yeah. No, so well said, Senator. I'm just listening to you there. And you think about people like Zohran Mamdani, this joke of a mayoral candidate in the biggest city in the most important country, economically, militarily, on the planet right now. And this guy might get elected. We're hearing that Eric Adams, a former police officer himself, still the current mayor, definitely this morning not the favorite to win in November. Maybe that changes after this because he's somebody that knows the importance of police. But can you just widen this out? I don't think this is an issue in Oklahoma. It's the reddest state in the country. Every single county voted for Donald Trump in 2024 right. And in 2020 and in 2016, which is pretty remarkable. Oklahoma City, Tulsa, an absolutely beautiful town run by Republicans by and large. Of course, there are many Democrats. But you look at these blue cities, and I'm from the Boston area, and I haven't been back in a long time. And I was back just recently, and that's not the city that I remember from 15 or 20 years ago. In New York City, my wife and I, we live in the suburbs. And whenever she comes into the city, I'm like, look, just be careful. This is not the city that we remember when we were younger and Rudy Giuliani was mayor. It's just not.
Yeah, well, when you run politics by saying that it's not okay to succeed, that you must be a cheater if you succeed, you run the city by saying that you have the right to be offended because you look for a reason to be offended. You run a city that's more apologetic rather than actually encouraging people to live the American dream, rather than demonizing those that are trying to live the American dream and saying it's not fair. Those are the individuals that are creating the jobs. Those are the individuals that pay the taxes of the city. Those are the individuals that hire the employees. Those are the people that make sure unemployment is low and the tax revenues are high, but yet you demonize those individuals and you make them become the enemy. this is what happens, but that's what a socialist society is. A socialist society demonizes anybody that's successful and says, wait a second, it needs to be equal. The only reason why you haven't succeeded is because they've treated you unfair. Elect us and we'll let everything be free. It doesn't work. That society doesn't work. That technique doesn't work. That's why every socialist society has collapsed. However, they still feed this type of mentality towards people, and that's what's happening in New York. I mean, I've said this before. There's three things that a socialist society has to control. They have to control education, they got to control health, and they got to control food supply. Right now, New York is becoming as a socialist education system. It's a socialist healthcare system, and now you got a mayor candidate that's wanting to make all the grocery stores ran by the government. Now you're going to have a socialist food center. That is extremely scary, and it will not work.
Yeah, Senator, the Wall Street Journal out with a poll over the weekend. The Democratic Party has never been as unpopular as it is right now. Now, they've only been polling certain questions for so long, but one of the questions was, who do you trust more? And even though maybe Donald Trump is not popular on every issue, 1,500 registered voters said unanimously they trust Republicans across the board more. Now look at what's going on in New York City. Do you think there's a connection?
Well, you see what's going on in New York City. You see what's going on in San Francisco, L.A., Washington, D.C., Chicago. You can even see what's happening in every major city around the country that's in a blue state, and it's rinse and repeat. I think there is a coalition between the two. There's a 30-point swing between those that trust Democrats and those that don't trust Democrats. That's a huge margin. That means that Democrats are on life support, and you would think they would change to Democrats of JFK instead of the Democrats of AOC and Bernie Sanders, but they're not. They continue to run towards the left to this woke movement, and it doesn't work. But hey, as a Republican, and as someone that comes from a red state, and I've told this multiple times, if the rest of the country worked like Oklahoma, we'd be pretty dang successful, especially physically, and
Yes.
making sure we have our house in order. But it doesn't work that way, unfortunately.
Yeah, and you have, Senator, I know, a big family that's always on your mind, and certainly is right now.
Yes.
And your concern is keeping your wife and all of your children safe. And I think about this all the time. And not to make this personal, my wife went into the city with my daughter yesterday to celebrate her birthday. She's a little girl, 8 years old, and this was on my mind. And my building, Senator, you've been in studio. We are less than 3 blocks away from where all of this happened, in the area that is supposed to be the safest part of the city, but clearly it is not.
Right. It worries you all the time, especially when you're a public eye like yourself or anybody else that's there, because you're noticeable, and you get death threats just like anybody else that's in the public eye right now. And it's always concerning. It's always concerning with me and the kids. I mean, today just today I had one of my boy he's actually 21 in college. He sent me a screenshot of someone that private messaged him on Instagram that said, "I hope you and your dad hang yourself."
Wow.
You're like, really? You're reaching out to my 21-year-old college student now. Now, he's a wrestler in college. He can handle himself very well. But you just go, like, what are you achieving by saying that? What makes you feel like a man, or whoever you are, or a woman, and I don't know who it was, but what are you achieving by doing that? You're not accomplishing anything except just bringing in hate, instead of let's find a way that we might be able to work through our differences, because if we really sit down, we might be able to find some common ground, but the way we're moving isn't working, and it's not sustainable. We're going to have to sit down and have conversations again.
And speaking of, and that's a great point, speaking of the way we're moving, it's early now. I'm not saying this right now, but I don't trust it for a second. I don't know if we can put up the picture of the suspected shooter again. I don't think he's a suspected shooter. The guy's walking into a building in broad daylight with looks like an AR-style rifle in his hand with a scope. I mean, look at the body language right there. I don't know if you can see it on your end, Senator, but as
I can't.
confidently as possible, walking into this building, 345 Park Avenue. And look, all the networks are covering this right now. But I wonder, if this story doesn't fit the narrative, and I hate to say this, but everything's political in this country now. If this story doesn't fit the narrative, and this is a, this guy's a black guy or from the Middle East or whatever, and he did in fact yell "Free Palestine," I wonder how much this gets covered on some of the other networks, and you know exactly what I'm talking about.
It'll be an evening story, and that's it. And the only reason why it's going to be an evening story is so many of the networks are down there in that area.
Yeah.
Other than that, it wouldn't even be an evening story. Unfortunately, that's the truth. It's just kind of like what happened on the streets of this couple that was leaving the jazz festival. If that was in the roles were reversed, and I'm not trying to bring race into it, because it is political.
Right.
If the roles were reversed in this, it would have been all over the news all weekend. Instead, it wasn't covered by anybody but you guys.
Yeah, Senator, I appreciate you saying that. We had guests booked tonight. We had J.D. Vance's brother, who's running for mayor in Cincinnati, Ohio, where this happened, booked with us. We'll see if we can still get to him with the breaking news in New York. But I want everyone at home to know, we made the decision as a team tonight to cover this story because this is New York City. And what happens here with this Zoran Mondami candidate, he got married in Uganda at a multi-million-dollar wedding at his family's compound. His next-door neighbor, a billionaire. Senator, I know you've done well, but I don't know if you've got a billionaire who lives next door to you. And how many are in Uganda? Apparently one lives right down the street from Zoran Mandami's family in Uganda, and that's where he is. Final thought.
Well, I have said this multiple times. You've never seen a poor socialist leader.
Yeah. Yeah. And he got married there instead of at a town hall or instead of at City Hall or something like that, or a community center. Multi-million-dollar wedding in Uganda, and this guy wants to be mayor of New York City. Mark Wayne Mullin, Senator, Oklahoma, great to see you, sir. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks, Rob.